Masechet Avoda Zara, Daf Chaf Zayin. On the previous daf, we saw B'raita with a machloket between the Yehuda and the Yosef about whether a Samaritan can perform a Brit Milah for a Jew. Rabbi Yehuda said no, he cannot, because Mipnei Shemal L'Shem Har Gerizim. Samaritan believes that the holiest place in Israel is up in the north on Har Gerizim. They do Brit Milah because they follow the 5 books of the Torah. However, when they do Brit Milah, they have in mind, this is for the God that lives on Had Gerizim. And so therefore, that's not good. You have to have intention, proper intention, when whoever is doing Brit Milah has to know what he's doing, and that should be for the proper Brit. Whereas Rabbi Yosef said, who says that the Brit Milah has to be lishma, that has to be for the sake of exactly the right intention. Rather, mal ve'olech, let the Samaritans do as many Brit Milot that they want, as long as the operation is done. You don't have to have specific intention that has to be the Hashem of Yerushalayim associated with this and that. Okay, we pick up on that. Amar Rav Chisda. Mai ta'amad Rabbi Yehuda. What is the source for Rabbi Yehuda that you have to have a specific intention for Brit Milah? Tichtib ladonai himol. There's a pasuk. It's here in Shemot. The context is actually Pesach. It says, V'chi agurit techager ve'asa Pesach ladonai. You have the segota here that separates that into one clause. If a foreigner should dwell with you and he makes a Pesach, then he malo kol zachar. Then he has to have a Brit Milah. It could be he's a foreigner who came to live in Israel. He has to have a Brit Milah before he could do Korban Pesach. So the La Hashem kama. However, this Midrash is reading these two words together. La Hashem himol. In order, whoever is doing a Brit Milah, the mohel has to have in mind that he's doing is for Hashem. And when he says Hashem, the proper meaning of Hashem, he who dwells in Yerushalayim, not on Har Gerizim. And so that's Rabbi Yehuda's source. Rabbi Yosef was his source. Himol yimol, pasuk from the commandment of Abraham. It has a double language. Himol yimol. What do we learn from that double language? Himol, only someone who is circumcised himself, yimol, he can do a circumcision. And so therefore, a Samaritan, does he have a circumcision? Yes, they do that. They do circumcision. And therefore, he can do a circumcision himself. Hold on, Rabbi Yosef, what do you do with that pasuk that says, for Hashem you have to do Brit Milah with proper intention? How Pesach ketib? And they'll say, no, that's talking about Korban Pesach. That's the context. Pesach Hashem. The Pesach is for Hashem, not the Brit Milah is for Hashem. So that's right, according to the Ta'amim. What's the Yehuda who's Machmir going to do with Himol Yimol, which means anyone who is circumcised can do a circumcision, even if they don't have proper intention. Yehuda says the Torah uses double language because it speaks in the language of man, and people often use things, say double language, for emphasis. And therefore you cannot learn anything special from the double verb. Itemar, minayin lemila begoy shehi pesula. And now we ask, how do you know that a non-Jew cannot be a mohel? If a non-Jew does a circumcision to a Jew, it's not valid. What's the source? Two sources. Daru bar papa mishmet Rav amar v'atat briti tishmor. V'Rabbi Yochanan himol yimol. Rav says it's from the commandment of Abraham. You shall keep my covenant. You, meaning Abraham, you and your descendants after you. So that means only someone who is within the covenant can perform a Brit Milah. Only a Jew, not a non-Jew. Rabbi Yochanan learns it from the pasuk that we saw before. Himol, imol. Someone who has a circumcision, they can do a circumcision. Generally, it's Jews who have a circumcision, so they can make one. But non-Jews generally don't have a circumcision, so they cannot perform one. My benaihu will be a practical difference between these two derivations. Aravi mahul ve'gavnuni mahul ika benaihu. An Arab who is circumcised. We're talking about Arabs even before Islam. All this, the Talmud is written before Islam even started. But the Arabs, even before Islam, the Arabs had a custom that they did Brit Milah, and also these hill people, some nomadic group that also did circumcision. that would be a difference between these two opinions. Man damar himol yimol ika, man damar et biditi tishmor leka. Rabbi Yochanan, who learns it from himol yimol, anyone who is circumcised can do a circumcision. Well, the Arabs are circumcised, so they can do it for a Jew. However, the opinion that Rav's opinion that says you have to be in the berit in order to do a circumcision, only a Jew can do it, not an Arab who happens to be circumcised. Now we question that conclusion that this would be a difference between the two opinions. Is that really true? That if you learn from himol yimol, then an Arab can do a circumcision? V'ha'tenan konam she'ani nehene min ha'arelim mutar ba'arele Yisrael v'asur b'mule umot ha'olam. Alma fagav de mihili keman de la mihili damu. We have a Mishnah in Masechet Nedarim that if someone says prohibited to me is I'm not going to get any benefit from an arel. Arel literally means someone who's not circumcised. So you might think that means someone who's physically not circumcised versus circumcised. That's what you might think. But the Mishnah teaches us otherwise. When someone says arel, it's not actually a biological term to say is this person circumcised or not. Arel is a technical term to mean someone who's not Jewish. And therefore, that person who made this vow, even though he said, I won't benefit from anyone who is not circumcised, he's permitted to benefit from a Jew who, for whatever reason, that didn't get circumcision. But he's Jewish. He can benefit from that person. It doesn't apply. And he's prohibited from getting benefit from a non-Jew who happens to have a circumcision. An Arab who has a circumcision, he has actually included an adelim. In other words, the word adel, although dictionary definition is uncircumcised, but the meaning of it, that when people use it, actually is about not being Jewish. Therefore, even though he has a circumcision, it's as if he doesn't have a circumcision. For legally, that's as if he doesn't have a circumcision in terms of identity. And therefore, even though it says himol yimol, that should not include a non-Jew. We mean someone who's someone who gets a brit milah. You could say the difference in Hebrew and English. Circumcised, anyone can get a circumcision. Only a Jew can get a brit milah. And so that's what it means, himol yimol, only someone with a brit milah. And therefore, an Arab who's circumcised would not be able to perform a circumcision for a Jew, according to either opinion. So let's try again. What's the practical difference between the two derivations? Maybe a Jew whose brothers have died because of brit milah, so he didn't get brit milah. If a kid in the family dies from brit milah, the next kid also, so then you don't have to do a brit milah on the next kid. We see it's dangerous. This family has some kind of disease. Okay, so he's permitted to not get a brit milah. You can't do a brit milah on this child, but he is Jewish. Okay, if you say the derivation is from whoever is in the berit, this Jew is in the berit. He has a legal reason why he can't get a brit milah. But he's part of the berit, so he should be able to be a mohel. Whereas if you say himol yimol, only someone who is circumcised can do a circumcision, okay, technically he's not circumcised, so he cannot do it. That would be a difference. But we reject that too. Is that true? That if you say derive from himol yimol, then a Jew cannot do it? V'atenan. That the same Mishnah teaches konam shani nehene mimolim. Someone says the opposite. I vow that I will not have any benefit from someone who has a brit milah. Asur ba'arele Yisrael mutar b'mule umot ha'olam. He is prohibited from getting any benefit from an uncircumcised Jew, like this person here, whose brothers had died. So he is included in mulim, and therefore this Jew, he made a prohibition against getting benefit, and this person who made the vow is permitted to get benefit from someone who's circumcised from other nations. What do we see from here? Even if someone is a Jew, is not circumcised, it's as if they are circumcised. And therefore, even according to the one who says himol yimol, even though this Jew is not circumcised, it's as if he's circumcised because he's part of the berit. So he would be included and would be able to. So therefore, so far we don't have any practical distinction between them. Everybody would agree that any Jew, circumcised or not, can perform a Brit Milah, and everybody would agree that a non-Jew, circumcised or not, cannot do a Brit Milah. So what's the practical difference between them? Elaika benawi isha lemanda mar vatat beriti tishmor leka disha la bet milahi ulmanda mar himol yimol ika disha keman de mehila damya. A difference would be a woman. Can a woman be a mohel or mohelet? If you say it's from, the derivation is from you, Avraham, you have to follow my berit. My berit is referring to specifically to the berit milah, the sign of the covenant. Then a woman cannot do it because she is not subject to brit milah. Because she's not subject to the law of brit milah, she cannot perform it. But according to the opinion that says someone who is circumcised can do a circumcision, a woman is like circumcised. She doesn't have a foreskin. Okay, she doesn't have to do it, as we said above. There's no commandment at all. That's because she can't. She doesn't have a foreskin to begin with. So she is already pre-circumcised, as if within that category. And so if you learn from Himol Yimol, then a woman can do it. If you learn it from Beribiti Shimod, then a woman cannot be a Mohel. Umi Ikalamanda Marishala. And now we question this conclusion. Does anyone think that a woman cannot be a mohel? We have a story in Sefer Shemot that Sipporah, the wife of Moshe, she took a flintstone and she did a brit milah on her son. So obviously a woman is permitted to be a mohelet. Karibe vatakach. No, don't read vatikach, which is how we read it, but vatakach. She caused someone else to take a flintstone. She saw, there's a problem. My son doesn't have Brit Milah. She asked someone nearby, go take a flintstone. Vakati vatichrot, but that has a feminine noun. She cut. Karibe vatachret. No, she caused someone to cut. She went and told someone, go and do a Brit Milah on my son. She told someone else and he did it. Or another answer, if you don't want to change around the words, she started it. She did. She took the flintstone and she started making the cut, but Moshe is the one that completed it. And so, according to the opinion that says that it has to be a man, then you have to explain that Sipporah only started it, but did not finish the circumcision of her son. Next Mishnah, mitrapein mehen ripui mamon, avalo ripui nefashot. A Jew is allowed to get healing from a non-Jew if it's a monetary treatment. We'll see what that means, but not if it's a life treatment. So some kind of fear that the non-Jew is going to give bad treatment or try to kill the Jew. So therefore, a Jew should not go to a non-Jew for healing, unless if it's maimon, but if it's nefashot, it's okay. Why a Jew cannot get a haircut from a non-Jew in any place, because Rabbi Meir thinks that the non-Jew is going to take the scissors and try to stab the Jew. And the sages say, if it's in public, it's okay, because there's people there. He's not going to stab someone to death in public. But if it's just the Jewish customer and the non-Jew giving the haircut, then it's in private, then he agrees with Rabbi Meir that it's prohibited. What does that mean? Treatment of money and treatment of life. Maybe treatment by money means if the Jew pays the non-Jew, then it's allowed. But if it's for free, nefashot, if it's for free, then it's not allowed. Really, this comes from mammon, and the opposite of mammon would be, I guess, not mammon. So if that's the case, then the Mishnah should have said that more explicitly. One can get healing if you pay for it, but not for free. But it doesn't say those words. Rather, maybe ripui mammon means a wound that is not life-threatening. That is permitted if it's not life-threatening wound to go and help get the healing from a non-Jew. But ripui nefashot is something that is life-threatening. If it's life-threatening, then no, you cannot go to a non-Jew. This is more serious and maybe easier for the non-Jew to mistreat and kill the person. But that can't be because Rav Yehuda says even a wound from bloodletting, which is a small wound, it's a minor wound, wound. But if you have a problem with it and you need to see someone, then you cannot go to a non-Jew. So this would be included in Ripui Mamon, something that is not life-threatening, and yet Rav Yehuda says it's prohibited. But the Mishnah says Ripui Mamon is permitted. So it can't be that either. Rather, monetary treatment means treatment for things one owns, like one's animal. To go to the vet, you can go to a non-Jewish vet to heal your animal. But Ripui Nefashot means for him himself to go to a non-Jew who is going to heal the person, that is prohibited. What's the worst you can do? Kill the animal? That's not so. It's not such a danger. But killing the Jew himself is the danger. And that this answer would be supported by Rav Yehuda, who says that a bloodletting wound is not permitted because that's on the person's body, not the person's animal. And so this would be a support for that answer. Amar Rav Chisda Amar Morukva Avalim Amar Lo Sam Peloni Yafeh Lo Sam Peloni Ra Lo Mutar. Rav Chisda says if the non-Jew is not doing any surgery on you or anything, he's just giving you advice. Listen, this potion, this medicine is good. That medicine is good for this. This medicine is bad for that. Then you can listen to that advice. He's just telling you a prescription. Why is that okay? Sabah shayulem mishail lo kiechidem shael lo mishaleini shacharina v'atau gabra lo do'eh nafsheh. Because a non-Jew thinks, just like this Jew is asking me what my opinion is about this medication, he is probably asking other people also about it. And if I give him bad advice and tell him the opposite of what everybody else says, then it will damage my reputation. This is a non-Jew saying the whole time. So therefore, I'm not gonna risk my reputation and give him bad advice. And so, if he's just telling you which medication to take, then you can listen to that advice from a non-Jewish doctor. Amar Rav Amar Rabbi Yochanan. V'amri la Amar Rav Chisda Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said this. Either way, safek chai, safek met, and mitrapein mehen. Vaday met, mitrapein mehen. So a different distinction than we saw before. If someone has an ailment, he's not sure. Maybe he'll live, maybe he'll die. 50-50. Do not go to a non-Jewish doctor. But if he's definitely going to die, then go to the non-Jewish doctor. Because why not? What's the worst that can happen? He's going to kill you? You're going to die anyway. So at least maybe he won't kill you. Maybe he'll actually heal. So there's nothing lost. Therefore, you can go. Met ha'ika chayesh sha'ah. And now we ask, wait a second, is that really true? Even if he's going to die, let's say he has a disease, he's going to die in a month. But now he goes to this non-Jewish doctor, and by doing a surgery, he's going to die instead in a week. Or maybe it's less. Maybe he's going to die in 12 hours, and he goes to the doctor, and then the doctor's going to do something, and he's going to die after 6 hours. And that's chayesh sha'ah. Even temporal life, every minute is infinite. So therefore, even if someone has a disease that he's going to die from, he should not go to the non-Jewish doctors. And the answer is la chayesh sha'ah la chashinan. No, we're not concerned about short term. This is true in general. If someone has a disease, they might die in a few days. Okay, you're going to do a surgery that 50-50, it might kill him sooner or might give him a long life. Of course you're going to do the surgery. You don't wait till the last second that he's about to die to do the surgery. And so we're not worrying about that short amount of time that maybe he'll kill him sooner. Listen, this person's going to die pretty soon. So yeah, go to the non-Jewish doctor. Maybe he'll give you long life. That's the more hopeful and likely scenario. And what's the source that we are not concerned about temporal life if we can do something to heal the person? So even though we're putting someone in some danger and they may die sooner, in fact, from a certain surgery, but we could extend their life and make them better. So we don't worry about the risk to the small amount of time that we could take away if there is a possibility that we can heal them and give them longer life. How do you know that that's true? Because Pasuk says in Melachim, this is when Aram was besieging Israel, and there were lepers, 4 lepers that were outside of the camp. Now, inside of the city, there was a famine because it was under siege. And outside, also, there was no food. So these 4 lepers are there, and they are starving. So they said, what should we do? Should we enter back into our city? There's famine in the city. Should we stay here? we'll die here. So we may as well go into the enemy camp. Who knows? That it's 50-50. They may see us and kill us. Okay, we're going to die anyway. We'll die a little sooner, it's true, by going into their camp rather than staying out here and starving to death, which will take a little longer. But who knows? Maybe something good will happen and we'll be able to survive, which is in fact what happens. They go into the enemy camp, they see that everybody ran away, and they go back and they tell the Jewish army, and they win the war. So over here, how could they do that? How could they go and put themselves in more danger? Maybe you should say, well, they could live another 2 days without food. How can they go into the enemy camp and maybe they'll be killed right away? This chayei sha'ah. Rather, we see that we are not concerned about a short amount of time that a person can live if he has a possibility that he can do something that may shorten his life a little bit, or it may lengthen his life. He may be successful and healed. So that's the source. Metibe lo yisav yiten adam im haminin ve'en mitrapein mehen afilu lechayei sha'ah. Now we have a challenge from a braita that says a person cannot engage in dealings with a heretic, and one can also not get medical treatment from them, even if it's regarding temporal life. In other words, like a person is going to die soon anyway, still, you cannot go to a heretic. So you see that we are concerned for chayei sha'ah, and you're not allowed to go to Amin. So we're going to end up distinguishing between Amin and a regular non-Jew. There is a distinction there. But according to this, Amin, no, not even for anything you cannot go to them, even if a person is terminal, and by going to them, who knows, maybe it'll extend their life, but maybe they'll die shorter. So this is a challenge to what we just said. And the Braita continues with a story. Ma'aseh ben Dama ben achoto shel Rabbi Ishmael shehikisho nachash uba Yaakov ish kefar sechanya lerapoto ve'lo henicho Rabbi Ishmael ve'amar lo Rabbi Ishmael achi hanach lo ve'erafe mimenu v'ani abi mikra min haTorah shu mutar ve'lo הספיק לגמור את הדבר עד שיצאתה nishmato umet. A story about Ben Dama, the nephew of Rabbi Ishmael. And the nephew, Ben Dama, he was bitten by a snake, and he's going to die soon. And this person, Yaakov from Sechanya, who was known as a heretic, he's associated with Yeshu, a disciple of Yeshu. And so he comes and he says, I can heal that. But Rabbi Ishmael, the uncle, said, no, you cannot get healing from him. He is a heretic. But Ben Dama said, Rabbi Ishmael, my brother, means his father's brother, right? Leave him, let him heal me. I will bring a pasuk to prove to you that it is mutar. But that's it, mutar was the last word that he said, and he died before he was able to argue his case. And so he died from the snake bite. Kara alav Rabbi Ishmael ashrecha ben Dama shegufcha tahor ve'asta nishmatecha betahora. Rabbi Ishmael said, happy, fortunate are you, Ben Dama, because your body is pure and your soul left you with purity. While he was saying the word mutar, right? So and also that you didn't sin, because if the idolater would have this heretic would have treated you, then you would have the last thing. Maybe you would have died. You would have died in sin. And even if it would have made you better, still you would have gone against the sin. You're not allowed. Even if it's life-saving, you can't follow idolatry or heresy. And you do not violate your colleagues, because the rabbis say, that you're not allowed to get healing from a heretic. And they would say, anyone who breaks through a fence, a snake shall bite him. There's a general statement that says anyone who ignores the statement of sages, even if there's no technical punishment in a bet din, but a snake will come and kill him. Now, ironically, he was actually bitten by a snake and killed by a snake. We'll ask that question in a second. But back to our main question, we just said that if someone's going to die soon anyway, then they're allowed to get healing from a non-Jew. And now you just said even though someone's going to die soon, they cannot get healing from a heretic. So the answer is Shane minut de mashcha tatel mimshach batraihu. Heresy is different because a person will be drawn to it and be convinced by it. Especially if a heretic comes and heals a person and saves his life, he's going to be like, wow, what? I want to learn more about what you do. And they will bring themselves and maybe other people also to heresy. So heresy is more dangerous and worse, and that's why in this case it was prohibited, even though a person was going to die, and he did die anyway. Still, heresy is so bad that you have to better to die than get benefit from a heretic. But when it comes to just a regular non-Jew, not a heretic, then if this person is going to die anyway, then go and get the healing from the non-Jewish doctor. Amar Mor, lo avarta al divrei chaverecha sheomrim b'puras kadesh shechenu nachash iu namech iviyat tarkeh. And now we ask that Rabbi Ishmael said, oh, you're fortunate that you did not go against your colleagues because they say someone who breaks a fence will be bitten by a snake. So you're so fortunate that this didn't happen to you. What do you mean? He was bitten by a snake and he actually died from a snake bite. And the answer is no, he wasn't bitten by a snake that was caused by violating the rabbis. That kind of snake that bites a person, if he violates the rabbi's statement, that has no remedy at all. This snake bite that he got actually did have a remedy. He just didn't get it in time. But the point is that you didn't die as a punishment for violating the rabbis. You died because a snake bit you. Okay, that's such a thing that happened. But at least you died betahara. Now, there was a statement that Ben Tamar was going to say. He didn't get to say a pasuk. What pasuk was he going to quote? He was going to quote pasuk in Vayikra, V'chai bahem v'lo she'emut bahem, that you should live by them, by the mitzvot, and not die by them. Right? The mitzvot are there to give you life. And therefore, if there's a contradiction between sakadat nefashot and a certain mitzvah, then you should save a life, even if it means violating a precept. So he was going to quote that, and he thought, Ben Dama thought that applies even to idolatry, or a heresy. I know this guy's a heretic, but if he heals me, he heals me. Better that I should live, even if there's a possibility that I'll follow his heretical ideas. That's what he was thinking. Rabbi Ishmael says, yes, if you're in private, then you could violate the law and be saved, but not in public. And this was in public, and that's why it's not just him, but other people around. And they're going to have a whole public problem, everybody going to heresy. That you can't do. Tanya, Hayar Rabbi Ishmael Omer, Minayin she'momedim lo le'adam, avoda zara v'al tehareg, she'yavod ve'al yahareg, as it says in the Braita. Rabbi Ishmael teaches, how do you know that? If someone tells someone else, do this idolatry and you won't die, otherwise I'll kill you, that he should ya'avod ve'al yahareg, that he should worship the idol and not be killed. Tamod omar v'chai bahem ve'lo she'emut bahem, he should live by them and not die by them. This is a different opinion than the big three in Masechet Sanhedrin, whereas idolatry you never do. According to Rabbi Ishmael, even for idolatry, worship idolatry and don't die. Now, but that's true in private. Do you think that's true even in public? That's why the pasuk says, do not profane my name. The rest of the pasuk, different pasuk, says, do not make a chilul Hashem. If it's done in public, then that will be a chilul Hashem, and that is prohibited. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.